the author, Jan Campbell, a German citizen of Czech origin, is a seasoned analyst with decades of international experience. Born in 1946, he has worn many hats. Head of Campbell Concept UG Bonn, assistant professor at the University of Economics in Prague, visiting scholar at universities worldwide, and EU advisor to 2 Kyrgyz prime ministers. His career spans the UK, Italy, Switzerland, Malaysia, the former USSR, Central Asia, Russia, and across Europe. In Russia, he was honored as a professor at the Ural State Agrarian University. In Slovakia, he received the prestigious Golden Biotech Award 2014 for offering fresh perspectives on global and domestic affairs through his professional work and media contributions. This article was first published on Goris21.com, a platform for critical analysis and commentary. The 2025 China-Europe on Human Rights.
Eurostar's Madrid Congress, June 25, 2025. Epilogue. As a prologue. 1. Foreign media have found out that Denmark is the first country in the EU to secure the right to own a body and vote, necessary at a time when it has never been easier to copy with artificial intelligence and spread misinformation and false information, Minister of Culture Jakob Engel-Schmidt wrote on X, attaching an article from The Guardian. Engel-Schmidt insisted that Denmark would not allow people to walk through a digital copier and be abused for all sorts of purposes. He told The Guardian, "In the bill, we agree and send an unequivocal message that everyone has the right to their own body, their own voice, and their own facial features, which is clearly not the way the current law protects people from generative AI." According to The Guardian, the new law defines deepfake as a very realistic digital representation of a person, including their appearance and voice. Parodies and satire are excluded from the bill. The new amendment is expected to be voted on this autumn, and the proposal would be discussed with EU colleagues when Denmark takes over the presidency of the Council of the European Union in July. 2. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, founded in 1975, is an intergovernmental body with member states from Asia, Europe, and North America. Its observers around the world oversee elections and human rights records by foreign governments and are often deployed to active war zones and areas of unrest to observe events on the ground. Its officially declared mission is crisis management and conflict prevention. However, the OSCE's activities in Yugoslavia in the late 1990s and later amply demonstrate its usefulness in fomenting conflicts. In September 1998, hostilities erupted into all-out war. A UN Security Council resolution of the same month demanded that both sides adhere to the ceasefire. Yugoslav military forces were duly withdrawn from the province. The Kosovo Liberation Army, KLA, subsequently took advantage of the army's absence to intensify its bloody rampage, conquer more territories, and exterminate the non-Albanian population. A specialized OSCE unit, the Kosovo Verification Mission, KVM, was also created to ensure Belgrade's compliance with the ceasefire. KVM was granted full and undisturbed movement wherever it wished. Their presence proved crucial not only to the KLA's savage crusade, but also to NATO's subsequent criminal bombing of Yugoslavia in March-June 1999. 2. During Yugoslav leader Slobodan Milosevic's trial at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, a number of defense and prosecution witnesses, including OSCE veterans, testified about the KVM's malevolent role in laying the groundwork for NATO's bombing of Belgrade. A Yugoslav army colonel who suffered from serious health problems as a result of NATO's illegal use of depleted uranium during the campaign gave extensive insight into how members of the mission routinely and intensively searched Yugoslav military facilities, taking detailed notes at each step. 3. Fast forward to March 2014, when OSCE observers were deployed to Ukraine as the east and south of the country descended into civil war after the Western orchestrated Maidan coup. Their presence and role in the conflict has hardly been recognized by the mainstream media during their 8 years on the ground. They were withdrawn in March 2022 after a full-scale proxy conflict broke out in the country a month earlier. One could speculate that the mass media coverage of OSCE activities in Donbass stemmed from their observations, which completely undermined the official position of many Western governments, militaries, and intelligence services, Ukraine's own and Western news media. In October 2018, Alexander Hug, the deputy head of the OSCE local mission, was asked by Foreign Policy for its agency's official position on Russia's involvement. Hug emphatically stated that the OSCE had seen no direct evidence of this at all. The article was suspiciously later updated and Hug's response was edited. However, his unplanned initial response is all the more remarkable, as it is now clear that the OSCE mission in Ukraine has been heavily compromised and infiltrated by Western powers. Its observers not only failed to record serious abuses and violations of the ceasefire by Kyiv, but also provided sensitive information to NATO and Ukrainian forces. In September 2023, a British OSCE observer was convicted in absentia by a Russian court for providing detailed satellite maps of military facilities operated by NATO's separatist Luhansk People's Republic. This espionage allowed Ukrainian forces to carry out precision attacks on these places, resulting in loss of human life and material damage. The former Greek ambassador to Kyiv called such intelligence sharing by the OSCE absolutely routine. It is also claimed that the assassination of a Russian OSCE observer in 2017 with a car bomb was carried out deliberately in order to remove him from the mission. 4. Iran wisely is not a member of the OSCE and does not allow its observers access to its territory. However, the organization is keenly interested in Tehran's alleged nuclear program. In June 2012, an OSCE delegation declared, "We can no longer ignore the international security implications posed by a nuclear Iran." It should be further noted that Iran borders OSCE members Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Turkmenistan, and suggested that these states could somehow help neutralize the Islamic Republic's alleged nuclear ambitions. Given the recent shocking revelations about the IAEA's secret agreement with Israel and the deplorable track record of other UN-affiliated intergovernmental organizations like the OSCE, it is inconceivable that Tehran would be willing to allow any international entity to play a role in mediating its conflict with Israel. All non-Western countries would be wise to follow Iran's lead. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, said that Tehran will also have to reconsider its cooperation under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. 20 years of transparency and confidence building over Iran's peaceful nuclear program have not yielded results, and the issue will be addressed, he told the New Arab newspaper on Tuesday. 5. The U.S.-built institutions that pretend to serve peace have been proven time and time again to actually be mechanisms of control and infiltration. Pretending the U.S. is a neutral actor is beyond ridiculous and serves the interest of no state trying to maintain its sovereignty. Trump has completely destroyed the credibility of international treaties, especially the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and strengthened America's reputation as a fraudster. The credibility of the agency's global verification system, which was used as a source of information for bomb planning, is being called into question. The fact that Iran's nuclear facilities, under the control of the IAEA, have become targets of American and Israeli missiles is an open challenge to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Zakharova said at a press conference on Wednesday. The same applies for intentional murdering of scientists and their families, the distribution of drug tablets hidden in bags of flour distributed at aid distribution centers run by the United States and Israel, 5, and similar actions aimed at destroying the social fabric and spreading drug addiction among civilians. Last but not least, ordering the military to prepare a plan to enforce measures against Iran, which includes maintaining Israel's air superiority, preventing nuclear advances and missile production, and responding to Iran for supporting terrorist activities against Israel, as Israel Defense Minister Katz said on June 27. 6. According to the justice portal Mizan, at least 71 people were killed in Israel's attack on the notorious Evin prison in Tehran, including prison staff, conscripts, prisoners, and family members of prisoners. Iranian activists and former inmates reacted with sharp criticism, saying the attack had endangered the lives of political prisoners, including several Europeans, and mocked their fate.
Digital rights and HR in times of anthropological war. Annotation. We have been living in times in which the current conflicts in the world represent episodes of anthropological war, even though it is an officially unsettled term in the academic world and literature. We have been living in times in which the first armament in history has begun, which not only impoverishes us, as every armament does, but also does not arm us. As a result of the described processes, we have been experiencing a systemic crisis of the Western concept of human rights in terms of the limitation of freedom of expression, of the election procedures at state, national and personal level, and, last but not least, at the politicized juridical level as represented by the ECHR. The function, the importance of language and its archetype have been removed from educational curricula. The shift from telling truths to telling lies and bullshits results in a stupidity endangering the society. There is no more knowledge of the functions of language between the young generation that we have known since the time of the Prague Linguistic Circle, and the kind of unity of language, religion, and magic in a specific case in the public life. Similar applies to the election and appointments of elites, academicians, and professionals to participate in the public education, administration, and transnational corporate activities. The West continued to promote the narrative that its values are universal and that other civilizations are either backward or even dangerous and extremist, while distorting the Confucian tradition as a symbol of authoritarianism. As nearly all technological inventions are in the hands of a few entrepreneurs who follow their own plans and interests which may not benefit everyone, it is not always possible to talk about sustainable progress. The digital divide and the deficits in safeguarding digital rights prove the thesis. The change of hegemon is the most sensitive period in international relations, when a major war has to be expected. That is why politics needs an analysis based on relevant facts, which are not only true but also significant, meaning important, and selected according to certain criteria. The criteria require knowledge, specific talent, and creativity. The current weakness of society is not only in the knowledge of facts and mathematics, but also in philosophy, which is supposed to help analyze facts. Unfortunately, it is lacking for a number of reasons. One of them is the blind copying of the model and prescriptions made by liberal democracy, and the endless educational reforms. As the traditional Western narratives are in many ways exhausted and fail to find solutions, we need to look for inspiration outside the framework of Western schemes and models. It seems that the teachings of Confucius, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Kant, and even national and folk religions could form the base of the new depoliticized model of human rights, of which the laws of the nature would be an integral, inseparable part. Key words: HR in the West and East, anthropological war, censorship, digital age, rights, divide and the risks, sanctions, geopolitics. Introduction. We have been living in times in which an armament in history has begun, which not only impoverishes us, as every armament does, but also does not arm us. It is confusing to consider individual acts of violence and primitive strife as the general precursors of modern warfare. It is wrong to consider war as a necessary consequence of man's biological nature. there is a threefold question without an answer. Is the war a breach of peace? Or is the peace a pause in war? What happens to human rights in times of war, which the author calls an anthropological, and in which the digitalization supports disinformation methods not only in the West as represented by fragmentation and decontextualization? In other words, the political puppeteers will only tell you the part that suits them and without context and the care of your rights, including the human rights. Anthropological war. It has been more than 5 years since I have publicly, and nearly 2 decades not privately, used the description of current conflicts in the world as episodes of the anthropological war, even though it is an officially unsettled term in the academic world in literature. Why do I speak publicly about anthropological war today? Because the anthropology offers one of the easiest explanations for understanding of designations for certain types of conflict: the clash of different cultures, values, and ways of life, a conflict between the West and the East, or a globalized societies against traditional ones. Even Samuel Huntington, 1927 to 2008, used the term War of Civilizations. This is nothing more than a cultural war in which the driving forces are not nation-states and ideologies, but civilizations defined by religious, legal, and cultural traditions, i.e., values, including human rights. Anthropologists look at how different groups of people get, prepare, and share food, deal with the meaning of different traditions, values, and customs. As the anthropologist studies social structures, their knowledge offers itself to be abused in peace and war times, as we can see in Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, Gaza, and now also in Iran. As an example of abuse may serve the American military human terrain system or the USAID and some of the programs offered by the EU which were used in a modified way. They prove that anthropology serves as an effective weapon. Anthropology is about the symbolism, ideology of human nature, the values and issues, such as what is man, what is his natural identity, gender, and role in society, but also provocative debates in the field of race, colonialism, and human rights. The importance of the function and meaning of the archetypes of language, psychology, and creativity. In the context of war and anthropology, it is necessary to know about the function and meaning of the archetypes of language, psychology, and creativity, and the resulting possibilities to manage the internal and external stress, as the individual archetypes are usually not in balance, and the world has been shaped without our consent by the digital technologies and gadgets. American cultural anthropologist Clifford Geertz, 1926 to 2006, who is remembered mostly for his strong support and influence on the practice of symbolic anthropology, borrowed a phrase from Clyde Kluckhorn's Mirror of Man, 1949, New York, Fawcett, that culture is the overall way of life of people, social heritage, way of thinking, feeling, and belief, abstraction from behavior, a theory of the actual way of behavior of a group of people, a storehouse of common knowledge, a set of steady orientation reactions to repetitive problems, learned behavior, a set of procedures for adapting to the external environment and other people, and also a condensate of history. This knowledge led to the writing of The Seventh Function of Language by the French author Laurent Binet, 1972. With it, the author held up a mirror to an entire generation, now vanished in time immemorial, radical and anti-establishment rebellious young intellectuals, of which many turned later into state bureaucrats and builders of the European Union, with all its disease-causing structures. There is nothing more we can do about it. It applies without any restrictions to the human rights discussions in the West and in the East in times of anthropological war, of the digital divide, and deficits in safeguarding digital rights. We should therefore remember the functions of language that we have known since the time of the existence of the Prague Linguistic Circle as expressive, conative, phatic or appellative, poetic,
referential, and metalinguistic. Because the language allows to create a kind of unity of language, religion, and magic in specific cases. It should therefore be perceived as an imperialist instrument. English belongs to this category. There is hardly any chance today for the majority of the younger generation of politicians to acquire the necessary knowledge in regard to the main characters of languages: arbitrary, symbolic, systematic, social, creative, modifiable, unique, idiomatic, expressive, implicit, and other, and the relation between language, psychology, and creativity archetypes. Further to the said, we should know about the preferred language of communication of the political class, the English. We should be interested not only in how the so-called elites communicate with each other, but also in how they express their opinions in public and what kind of understanding and feedback they receive or do not receive. This might be of more interest to us than the endless images of politicians and their female counterparts, who move among them usually without masks and pretending conversations. In this context, attention should be paid to the speech of the current president of the US, Trump, as it seems that he is incomprehensible to a large part of the world, also in regard to HR. The ways in which the president acts and conducts interviews are remarkable.